British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy reaches the halfway point in its inaugural season here at the majestic Parkland circuit. Oulton Park in the northwest of England. A beautiful sunny day, as we've been experiencing an awful lot of recently, and the perfect circuit for some close quarters racing and a championship that is definitely as tight as ever, even as we head into the mid part of the season, is sure to entertain us here with two races around the Oulton Park Island circuit coming your way this evening. We are about 35 minutes into a 50-minute practice session, after which we'll be diving straight into our short 10-minute qualifying session and then two 20-minute races, including a second race reversed grid. Always throws up some interesting surprises. Lots to look forward to over the course of the next 90 minutes or so. Thank you everyone for joining us. Hopefully you've all been following the progress of the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy over the last 3 or 4 weeks. If you have, then you've witnessed some great racing and you've seen that it's been pretty equal at the top. We've had 6 races and we've had 4 different winners. 11 different drivers have finished on the podium and a whole host of others have been able to get themselves top 5 finishes as well, and yet it's still reasonably tight in the championship. Just 9 points separating the Fortec teammates, Chris Lullum and Luke Browning. The local man, Luke Browning, lives in Cheshire, not that far away from the Oulton Park circuit. Just 9 points between them, with Zach O'Sullivan in third place, 21 points off the top. But as we head into this, middle part of the season, I think we're going to see that start to twist and turn a bit, as some drivers who maybe started off the season with limited iRacing experience might just be able to buy themselves back into contention, especially should the Fortec drivers have a bit of an off night of racing. They haven't really had a complete and utter disaster as a team yet. Maybe tonight is the night that the others really start to wind them in. My name is Andy McHugh, and I'll be your commentator for the evening. We'll be joined by a couple of guests as the night goes on, as well as having a chance to chat to our podium finishers, hopefully, after each of the two races. Also joining me, though, in the commentary box before he heads up to race control is Dan Blake, our clerk of the course for the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy. Dan, good evening. Thanks for joining us. Hoping, first of all, you're feeling a bit better than you were last time we spoke about 24 hours ago.
Good evening, Andy. Good evening. Yeah, I'm much better than I was feeling last night, that's for sure. Back in the fairly fit and raring to go for what's going to be a very good night of racing. The Oulton Park circuit always produces very close action, and I think that's almost guaranteed to be the case again tonight.
Yeah, definitely. It's a tight and unforgiving circuit, but overtaking is... it's a bit of a premium here. There are places you can pass, but of course these cars are all identical. They all run with a fixed setup, so there's no advantage to be found from tweaking gear ratios or suspension or wing angles. The cars are all essentially the same. And so the drivers are really going to have to think about making those moves tonight, because whereas last week when we were at the wide open Silverstone circuit, you could get away with a bit of a lunge there. Here at Oulton, you have to be a bit more careful, don't you?
Especially, of course, the hairpin on the first lap of both races. That could be a point of some action going on. But times are just as close as ever. And the times, really, you've got Luke Browning, who's currently fastest in the practice on a 1:13.2. And there's so many cars that are currently within a second. There is 7, 8, 9. There's only 15 drivers within a second. So that just shows the level of competition that we got tonight.
Yes, absolutely, and it bodes well for us that the top two drivers in the championship, Luke Browning and Chris Lullum, are only 2/100ths of a second apart at the top of the times at the moment. This is only a free practice session, though. No points on offer. This doesn't actually matter towards the rest of the evening, but that qualifying session coming up in about 10 minutes will be pivotal, because track position is so important. A bit of housekeeping to get out of the way, I think, before we dive into the rest of the evening. Dan, a couple of changes ahead of tonight's races. First of all, that setup that I mentioned is a fixed setup still, but it has been tweaked slightly, hasn't it, since Silverstone last week?
That is correct, Andy. We've gone on to the high downforce setting for this evening's race. As we say, you've got the 4 default iRacing setups that we can choose from, and for this race as a trial, we're going to go on to the high downforce setup and see how it goes. It's a possibility that we could use this for the rest of the season as well, but as with the other setups, we'll give it a go and see what happens.
If ever there was a circuit where you probably could do with that extra downforce, it more than likely is Oulton Park. A couple of incidents as well that you had to look at from Silverstone last week. In fairness, significantly fewer than there were to deal with after the previous round at Brands Hatch, but I know that you still had to work hard reviewing a few bits of contact. What was the outcome of that? I know there are a couple of grid penalties that will come into play later on tonight.
Yeah, what we had was in the second race, Christian Mansell accrued 25 seconds worth of penalties. The first one was a 5-second time penalty for a reactionary blocking move, causing a contact and loss of several positions for Marion Kramers at Copse. And then the incident towards the end of the race with himself and Seb Prio, I've adjudged that to be Christian at fault for that one. So we had a 20-second time penalty in lieu of a drive-through for that one. And Jonathan Hoggard had 40 seconds added to his race time. He had a 20-second penalty in lieu of a drive-through for contact with Alex Connor, causing Alex to get a fast repair on the first lap of that one. And also later in the race, there was contact with Raphael Martins at Brooklands, causing a fast repair. So that was a 20-second time penalty. As we're aware, we've given them these 2 fast repairs and had to be a bit more stricter in terms of the penalties to make sure that people are just generally being sensible on that one and sort of not taking advantage of the fact they got fast repairs. There was also a 5-second penalty which didn't make a difference in the end for Alexei Nessov for contact with Abby Pulling on the first lap at Copse, which caused Pulling to spin and drop to the back of the field. There's a penalty for Nico Pino as well. He's got a 5-place grid penalty for the incident which brought out the safety car at the start of the race too as well, and the exit of Copse. There was also a time penalty in the first race for James Headley for contact on Nico Pino at Brooklands. James, I believe, not with us tonight due to problems with the sim. Is one of those teammates as well, Josh Skelton, has got a pit start in the second race tonight for contact at Brooklands with Jaden Ojeda. And then there was an unsafe rejoin, which saw contact with Fabrizio Fitzsimon. And I've spoken to the drivers again tonight about the rejoins. I'm a little bit concerned that maybe they're not being as patient as they should be. So I've had a little word, so hopefully we'll see a bit of an improvement with that one tonight as well.
Yeah, the drivers have generally been pretty responsive, I think, to Dan Blake's instructions, and you've got to lay down the law sometimes with drivers, especially in a new series such as this one. But reading off that list there of all the penalties and incidents and things, it can sometimes give people the wrong impression, because this has been anything but a wreck fest. The racing has been really, really good. The trouble is when you get a group of young, up-and-coming single-seater racers, all of whom are pretty equal out on track, there's always likely to be a bit of wheel banging, the odd bit of pushing and shoving. But generally speaking, Dan, the level of driving standards have been good all along, and they've really improved week on week, to the point that now the racing is more and more starting to resemble that of the Real World Championship.
I totally agree, Andy. Driving standards have got a lot better as we've carried on. Obviously, the drivers have got to know what I expect from them. They've been racing with each other now for a little while on here as well, so it's getting to know the drivers online as well. They may have raced them in real life, but it's the online behaviours and things like that they need to sort of get a grasp on as well, because people may drive slightly differently in the online version than they would on the real tracks, of course. It's just sort of about knowing your competitors and things like that. And as I say, the racing has actually been really, really good, and I have to praise the drivers. They've produced a fantastic display of racing. Ever since the season started, really, there's not been massive problems. It's just tweaking out these small problems just to make the show even better.
Well, on screen right now, we're seeing a late entrant to the show, but a familiar name. The 2017 British Formula 4 champion, Jamie Caroline, is with us tonight, and hopefully for the remainder of the season. Hopefully that's the last time we see him doing that, though. Very easy mistake to make that coming out of Cascades Corner. He spectacularly bounced the grass bank at the wheel of his number 38 Pertec liveried car. He'll be racing for Carlin, the team with whom he wrapped up the 2017 championship, and the car behind, also having a spin ironically at the same corner, is Zane Maloney, and those two have a few things in common. They are both former champions. They are Zane Maloney, the 2019 champion, Jamie Caroline, the champion in 2017. Also are joint winningest drivers across any given season. They both won 10 races in their championship seasons, which is a joint record. No one else has ever been able to win more than 10 races in any given season of the British Formula 4 Championship. And they both managed, at one point throughout that season, to win all 3 races in a meeting, in one race weekend. Again, the only 2 drivers to have done that. Now, Maloney actually achieved it here at Oulton Park about 12 months ago. So this circuit definitely one that should suit Zane Maloney, but it's fantastic to have people like Jamie Caroline joining in the action here. Jamie's got a bit of sim racing experience, but I know he's set himself some modest expectations for the night's racing. The real racer is Jamie, and one of the best overtakers in the business. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how he gets on.
I remember watching Jamie sort of back in the Ginetta Junior days as well. As I say, someone who's been around the UK motorsport and Toker pilot for a long time. Very fast driver as well, Jamie. And it'd be great to see how he's getting on in this race tonight. He's say not maybe the most experienced to iRacing, but he's done a couple of races as well. I believe he did one last night as well around here in the Formula 3 and did rather well as well. So it's all a case of learning really for Jamie Caroline, and as he puts the laps away, he'll get more and more comfortable, I can assure you, with the track and the circuit and the car.
Yes, absolutely. The car, I remind you, is the Dallara Formula 3 car, the 2012 version of the Dallara Formula 3. The only reason that we do not use the Magal Formula 4 car, that of course is used in the real world British Formula 4 Championship, is simply that the car does not exist on iRacing as of yet. Hopefully at some point in the future that might change, but this is kind of the closest thing. And for many of these drivers, they have gone on to enjoy success in Formula 3 racing. One driver who definitely has been able to do that was one of the stars of the show last time at Silverstone as well, Nico Verone. Nico Verone had a few guest appearances in the British Formula 3 Championship last year, and Nico, in his debut in the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy last week at Silverstone, was immediately, sorry, no, excuse me, he didn't. He's been around for the whole season, but he made his first podium appearance at Brands Hatch, in fact, and then got another top 5 at Silverstone the race after. Running as a privateer is Nico Verone, but really sort of in the last few races, Dan, has started to prove himself as a possible championship contender. He is one of those 4 different race winners we've had. If he can bring a bit more consistency into his game, Verone could still be one to watch to challenge the Fortec boys.
There's so many different drivers who can win races in this championship. As sort of you say, so close. But Nico Verone, particularly the last couple of weeks, has really stood out as somebody who's been able to be a bit more consistent at the start of the season. He's getting those top 5 finishes, and that's what it's all about, really. We're still at the halfway point in the season. Anything can happen to Luke and Chris. So just people need to still get those points up on the board, be consistent, and you never know what it could bring you. And it's just going to be a really good battle, I think, to the end of the season to watch between Luke and Chris as well. They're very closely matched, 200 between them. So, as I say, it'll be a good viewing, I think, this evening.
Yeah, absolutely. And Fortec doing rather well in the Teams Championship as well. They are, perhaps unsurprisingly, leading the Teams Championship on 202 points, with Carlin second on 155 and Arden third on 76. So Carlin, with a bit of work to do maybe to bring themselves into the Teams Championship battle as well. There is Abby Pulling coming through. She was on the receiving end of some contact, unfortunately, at the start of, I think it was the second race at Silverstone. And so Abby Pulling, in fact, it was Lexington Sov that got into the back of her, and that's what the penalty for the Sov was for at Silverstone. But Pulling has been there or thereabouts again, really, all season long. Got 2 top 5s to her name, a 4th and a 5th. The 4th place coming at Silverstone in race 1, the 5th place at Donington at the start of the season. But really, apart from that, hasn't been a regular point scorer through lack of speed, but simply through lack of good fortune out on the track. So keep an eye to Abby Pulling to try and maybe get her season off to a proper start tonight, although she's 12th quickest in practice, a little way off the pace for now. Well, Dan Blake, thanks for joining us. I know you're going to have to dash very shortly because we have only 20 seconds left in this practice session before your official business starts for the night, but best of luck for the evening. Hopefully we're going to have lots more great racing to enjoy.
Thank you very much, Andy. As I say, we've got these good drivers going to have the 4 laps of qualifying, so I'm going to be just as interested and excited as the rest of you to see how that progresses. And thank you very much for having me in the commentary booth.
No, well, you're welcome any time. This is your second home, really, isn't it? So, whilst we prepare for qualifying to get underway, the drivers will all have to get out of the pits and onto a flying lap before we really start getting into the action. Let's remind ourselves of what happened last time at Silverstone, where in race number 1, Zach O'Sullivan came out a race winner, ahead of Luke Browning in second and Zane Maloney in third. The big story, I guess, really was Chris Lulham, who, in fact, he and Luke Browning both were losing ground in the early stages of the race, but were able to fight back. Browning to second, Lulham to fifth, and that meant that Browning clawed back some championship points against his teammate, who was ahead of him substantially going to the Northamptonshire circuit. But then in race 2, Chris Lulham was able to fight back. So Lulham won race 2, whilst Browning was all the way down in 9th place. So in the end, the championship margin went out instead of coming down. Seb Prio was in second place, third place Alexei Nasov, fourth Nico Verone, and fifth Abby Pulling. And I've just realised that I've read those 2 results out the wrong way. The first race was won by Lulham, the second by Luke Browning. I thought when I was saying it, Zach O'Sullivan, sorry, I thought when I was saying that it didn't quite make sense, but there you go. So that meant that Chris Lulham is the championship leader, as I said, by 9 points, with Luke Browning second, Zach O'Sullivan third, Nico Verone in fourth, and Marion Kramer's rounding out the top 5. But there is quite a gulf, really, between the top 3 in the championship, Lulham, Browning and O'Sullivan, to Verone, Kramer's, Maloney, Prio, who are all very, very close together on points, despite the fact that they have maybe not had that consistent season. If they can start winning more races, though, we've seen flashes of speed from all of those drivers, then they could join in the championship battle. We are not quite halfway through. After this first race of the night, we will be halfway through the season, so still plenty more point scoring opportunities to go. So qualifying is underway then, and the drivers are trying their best to warm the tyres up out on circuit at the moment, because they have only 4 laps in which to set their best time. It's a 10-minute session, but they're not allowed to complete any more than 4 flying laps during that session. So you've really got to get a move on. It's a slightly longer circuit. It's the longest track that we've raced at so far this season, 2.26 miles, the Oulton Park Island circuit layout. So they've got a bit of track to use to get those tyres up to their full operating temperature and pressure, but it's likely to be, I would say, the second and third lap. They'll be in the perfect window. The flip side of that is that the tyres will start to go off a little bit more quickly as well, whereas at Silverstone and Brands Hatch, the last 2 circuits we raced at very short circuits where, you know, you could get 4, 5, 6, 7 laps out of the tyres before they really start to lose their edge. Here at Oulton, you have a much narrower operating window where you've got enough temperature in the tyres, but they've not started to wear away yet. So it's going to be interesting to see who gets up to speed the quickest at the start of the qualifying session. We're on board then with Luke Browning, the man arrives here second place in the championship, twice a winner. He won the reverse grid race at Donington at the season opener and then backed that up with another win at Brands Hatch, and that put him in the championship lead. But of course it all started to change after that. He had a non-points finish the second race at Brands Hatch and only managed 2 points for 9th place in race number 1 at Silverstone as well. So 2 points out of those 2 races. The other race, though, that he has finished somewhere in the top 5. So Browning will be a tad inconsistent at times, a bit more so than his teammate Chris Lullum, certainly, but definitely on the pace every single time he's got into the car. For Martins, though, is the most on-the-pace driver right now. He is fastest provisionally in the session, and there is coming out of Nickelbrook Corner, but that was his outlap in the session. This is his first full flying lap, and we'll see, I'm sure, the times start to tumble very shortly. Nico Verone is second, and Verone was actually competing last night in the official British Formula 3 iRacing Championship here at Oulton Park in these very same cars, and he won the first race from pole position and was 4th in race 2, despite having to start from 27th on the grid. So Nico Verone, definitely another one to watch tonight as he tries to recreate some of the performance that he had 24 hours ago. Rafa Martins improves his time again to a 1:14.3. There's Verone going down into the hairpin at the wheel of the number 37 car. Verone has that 1 win from Brands Hatch and a top 5 at Silverstone, but apart from that has not been one of the heavier point scorers of the season. Still sits 4th in the championship, though. He's the first one that really has to try and bridge that gap to the top 3. And Kramers, meanwhile, has gone second. Zach O'Sullivan third. Zane Maloney pops into second on the grid now, though, and Luke Browning goes to pole. Luke Browning goes to the pole position, the local man, the man who has scored all 3 of our pole positions so far this year. We've had 3 qualifying sessions so far in the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy, and each one of them, Luke Browning has been the fastest driver. He's continuing that trend now with a 1:14.2, faster than anyone else by nearly a 1/10.5 actually at this stage. Qualifying is so important here at Oulton Park. It is difficult to overtake, therefore a good lap time is essential, and Alexei Nasov now goes to the pole position, a 1:14.0. I was about to remark that Seb Prio had joined Luke Browning on the front row, but now the Russian driver Alexei Nasov, who was the driver who made his debut, one of 3 drivers actually making their debut last time out at Silverstone, and immediately impressing us. Nasov was able to get a 3rd place in race 1 and a 4th in race 2, so he was actually one of the biggest point scorers last time at Silverstone, and he is on pole position. It was by just over a 1/10 of a second, but now Chris Lullum has improved to second, so 7/100ths of a second separate the top 2. Rafa Martins is a further 3/100ths of a second back in 3rd, and Luke Browning, the qualifying dominator from the season so far, is only 4th, but then he's only 0.12 of a second off the pole position. We're following Seb Prio, who is 5th quickest so far, and he is on his 4th lap of the session, I believe, so he's getting towards the end of his qualifying times. Luke Browning has just gone through and not improved that time around. 1:14.20 remains his fastest lap. That's exactly the same time as Seb Prio, but because Browning set it first, he gets to hold on to 4th position. Unless Prio can improve, which he can not, in fact, because Marone's the one improving to what was second, but now Zach O'Sullivan in the Carling car goes to pole position. Zach O'Sullivan, right at the death, has moved himself in front, but actually, he was one of the last drivers out of the pit lane, so O'Sullivan has another lap to do, whereas Alexei Nasov in second and Verone in third are both in the pit lane, but now none of it matters anyway, because Rafa Martins has set the fastest time, a 1:13.9. Now Chris Lulham goes back to the pole position. They're clearly keeping life in their tyres a bit longer than I expected, because all of the fastest times are coming on the fourth and final lap of the session. What can Luke Browning do then? He is into Lodge Corner, the final turn. This is his final lap of the session as well, and he currently languishes down in 6th place with his big championship rival and teammate Chris Lulham on the pole position. Browning's down to 7th now because Maloney improves, but Browning gets the pole. Luke Browning pulls it out of the bag at the very final lap of the session to move on to pole position by a quarter of a second. Phenomenal performance there from the man that's dominated all of the qualifying sessions so far, and surely now he is likely to get 4 from 4 pole positions so far this season. Zach O'Sullivan is into the top 4 now. We're following Abby Pulling, who is down in 12th position. And all of this, of course, has knocked some pretty big names quite a long way down the order. Zane Maloney is only 7th. Seb Prio is only 9th, despite briefly holding a provisional front row spot. Abby Pulling comes through at the end of the session then, and, well, she was in 12th, and that lap time is not enough for an improvement in position. It's an improvement in time, but not position. With Jamie Caroline, by the way, well, he's down in 20th place. He said that he thought he'd struggle for pace here tonight. So far, he is sticking to that, but let's see if he improves at the end. He does not. So Jamie Caroline, the last of the drivers to have set a time, we did not see in the session Matthias Zagazeta or Nathan de Villiers, and they're not going to have time to get out there now either, so that must be some sort of a connection issue, although Zagazeta is showing as being off track on my timing screen. So that, I think, just about rounds out the session with Luke Browning getting the pole position there right at the death by 0.23 of a second and maintaining his perfect score of qualifying sessions. He hasn't, of course, started on pole in every race this year because we have these reverse grid races for race number 2. But Luke Browning has qualified on pole at every opportunity he's had, but he's got his teammate and rival for the championship, Chris Lulham, alongside him. Remember, Lulham arrives at Oulton Park 9 points ahead of Luke Browning, so Browning snatching the pole position could be vital, given how difficult it is to pass here at Oulton Park. We'll read through the full grid once everybody has completed the session. I'll be pulling one more lap to complete there, but in fact, loses ground at the end, goes down to 13th because I think Marion Kramer's improved. Nathan de Villiers has got out into the session late, and that spin might cost him a chance to set a lap time. He probably would have got through to the start-finish line to at least start a lap before the checkered flag came out, because that spin was at the penultimate corner, but as it is, he has spun, flat-spotted the tyres, maybe damaged the car, and as such has elected to head for the pit lane. So Zagazeta and de Villiers will not set lap times, but 20 drivers did, and the fastest of them all was Luke Browning. Now needs to try and get a good start to this race and beat Chris Lulham, but we're in for a real battle royale between those two, I think, with others in the mix as well. It's worth saying, because whilst Browning took that pole position by nearly a quarter of a second, the next second covers about the next dozen cars or so, so it's definitely not all over just yet. To remind ourselves then of the grid, this is how they'll line up for race number 1 of the night here, round number 7 of the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy. It's the Fortec teammates at the top, but it's the second place driver in the championship, Luke Browning, who gets the pole position, with the championship leader Chris Lulham alongside. Rafa Martins and Zach O'Sullivan share row number 2 with Alexei Nasov, another good qualifying effort in 5th. Yeah, Verone in 6th place also should go quickly. Zane Maloney, triple race winner from Oulton Park in the Real World Championship last year, only manages 7th on the grid, alongside Jonathan Hoggard on the 4th row. Then Seb Prio and Alex Connor round out the top 10. Aidan Oyeda is 11th alongside Marion Kramer's on the 6th row. Abby Pulling and Ollie Bierman share row 7. Christian Mansell is down on the 8th row with Mikael Grundtvig ahead of Josh Skelton and Horatio Fitzsimon on row 9. Nico Pino is on the 10th row with Jamie Caroline. He should race better than he qualifies though, I think, so keep an eye to Caroline, whilst Nathan de Villiers and Matthias Zagazeta, if they get out into the session, it looks like at least de Villiers should, whether or not Zagazeta makes it into the race, but if they do, they will share the back row of the grid. Deep breaths, everyone, then, because this run into Old Hall Corner going to be exciting. It's also going to be really pivotal in deciding the outcome of this race. Overtaking is tricky at Oulton Park. It's a narrow circuit. It's tight. It's unforgiving. Not saying that we're going to see a processional race, because I definitely don't think that's going to be the case, but getting the whole shot, getting into Old Hall Corner in the race lead, especially for those two Fortec teammates fighting for the championship, that will be their primary goal here. And don't forget that third in the championship is Zach O'Sullivan, and he starts on the second row, fourth on the grid for the Carlin driver, the highest placed of the Carlin drivers. It's Fortec front row, then Arden and Carlin sharing row number 2, whilst Alexei Nasov is then 5th place on the grid, and Nasov privateer. So the red lights then are on. We're about to go racing for the first time here at Oulton Park. Round number 7 of the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy bursts into life. Which of the Fortec cars gets off the front row quickest? It's going to be a better start by Lulham by the looks of it. Chris Lulham on the inside line. The number 20 car tries to sweep through and does. Chris Lulham, the championship leader, gets the lead away from Browning through Old Hall, but Browning is fighting back down the avenue. The next corner is a left-hander at Cascades, and Luke Browning needs to try and get his teammate back behind him, which he does. Browning gets the lead back again. 2 leaders in 2 corners already, but it's Browning that settles in out front. Lulham in second, third for Rafa Martins, but no longer. Zach O'Sullivan launches an attack up the inside. There's a tiny bit of wheel banging. Oh, Rafa Martins spins. There's contact there, unfortunately, with is that Nasov possibly that ran into the back of him, and that's a real shame. A few more cars around further back too. Rafa Martins losing ground, Alex Connor likewise, but Luke Browning has the advantage as they drop down the hill through the chicane for the first time at Hislops into the right-hander at Nickelbrook Corner, and Browning from Lulham, another spin further back there. Christian Mansell, I think, was involved in that. Jaden Oyeda is the black car that's gone around, and lots of contact. Unsurprisingly, perhaps, the safety car is being scrambled, as we've had a couple of isolated incidents there around the opening lap, and already drivers slowing down, weaving around to try and keep the tyre temperatures up. Luke Browning, despite not getting off the line particularly well, has managed to hang on to the lead of the race, with Chris Lulham in second and Zach O'Sullivan third. So the top 3 in the championship are the top 3 in the race. We'll see first of all how O'Sullivan got that third place. He dives up the inside here into the hairpin. Oh, further back, contact between the 2 Arden teammates. Oh, and around goes Seb Prio. He was hit from behind by one of his teammates. I'll be pulling his delay. Josh Skelton, JB Caroline goes around, and then drives into the side of Matthias Sagazetta, who got into the race only to be involved in a first lap skirmish. Bits of Formula 3 car flying around left, right and centre as they came over hilltop, but that was all started by Seb Prio getting a nerf from behind by one of his teammates. We get another look here at some of the carnage going through the hairpin, and a few drivers doing a good job to avoid serious contact there. The number 60 car of Nico Pino picked up 8 positions on the opening lap, and that's where he gained a lot of them. Caroline there stranded in the middle of the road on the inside. Matthias Zagazetta also going nowhere fast. Into the pit lane have come Alex Connor and Horatio Fitzsimon. Everybody else, though, I think has continued. There's Jaden Oyeda, who was tipped into a spin down at the Nickelbrook Corner. Here, oh no, in fact, he may not have had contact. I think he was on the grass, wasn't he? Number 3 car there of Rafa Martins. Of course, he looked as though he was going to get away with the little bit of contact that he had up at the hairpin, Rafa Martins. Oh, well, now, hang on. That's Josh Skelton ringing to the back of 27, was that to Alex Connor? Yes, it was. So Alex Connor, this is after the safety car had come out, all slowing down, and Josh Skelton just didn't slow down at all going down the avenue and ran straight into the back of Alex Connor. And Alex Connor's had a few unfortunate incidents like this. He had some contact at Brands Hatch that took him out of a promising position. Yeah, and that's definitely not going to go down well with Dan Blake, the clerk of the course, I fear, because the yellow flags were out, and that's a signal to the drivers they need to be slowing down. There's no overtaking. Drive with extreme caution and be prepared to stop. And Josh Kelton was not prepared for everyone else to slow down in front of him, quite clearly. Well, the safety car is out then, the Ford Mustang leading the field around the track, and Luke Browning has the race lead. Chris Lulham is second, Zach O'Sullivan third. Like I said, the top 3 in the championship are the top 3 in the race. And then Zane Maloney, who started 7th, is into 4th place. Now, I mentioned that he won all 3 of the British Formula 4 Championship races from Oulton Park last season. He won races 1 and 3 from the pole position, but in the Real World Championship, it is the second race of 3 that sees a reversed grid, and he had to win that one from 6th on the grid. started this one 7th, and he's already up into 4th place. So Zane Maloney knows how to win races here at Oulton Park, be that from the pole position or from back in the pack. Couple of drivers heading for the pit lane. Alexei Nasov had front end damage after his contact up at the hairpin. Abby Pulling is in. Jamie Caroline has also made his way into the pit lane. All of these drivers tried to execute fast repairs to their cars. Because it's a lengthy lap here at Oulton Park, there's a good chance they should get back out there without going a lap down. So this is the joy of the fast repair that they've been given as well. 2 fast repairs, in fact, for this for the remainder of the season. Fast repair, for those new to iRacing, is exactly what it sounds like, really. If you sustain damage and you can drive your way back to the pit lane, then literally with the click of a button, your car gets fixed. But there are rules on top of rules to make sure that that system can't be exploited. It's mainly there for the benefit of drivers who are the innocent victims of contact, such as the incidents that we just saw on the opening lap. And already Nasov and Pulling have rejoined the track. Jamie Caroline's on his way out of the pit lane too, but still in the pits are Alex Connor, Josh Skelton and Horatio Fitzsimon. Oh, that was all eventful stuff there at the start of the race, as we kind of expected it to be, but there is Jamie Caroline, in fact, just continuing on his way. As Dan Blake was saying earlier on, he was a former star of the Ginetta Junior Championship before moving across into the British Formula 4 Series, where he was the champion in 2017. And it was a very similar championship winning year, actually, to that of Zane Maloney last season, in that Caroline sort of dominated the opening half of the year, getting those 3 races in a day as well at Thruxton early on in the season, and paying tribute to his good friend Billy Monger, who had been seriously injured, of course, in an accident earlier on in the season. And at the very next meeting, Jamie Caroline went out there and won all 3 races in honour of his good friend. Billy, of course, these days back racing both in the real world and in the sim world too. But Jamie Caroline making his first appearance here in the iRacing trophy for British Formula 4. Lights, as you can see, are out on the Ford Mustang iRacing safety car, so we're about to get the race back underway here. It is a time-certain race, 20 minutes the distance, so they don't add any laps on for safety cars in this championship, nor would they in the Real World Championship either. So this has taken a little bit of time away from these drivers that are all desperate for as much time as they can get, really, to wrestle the lead away from these Fortec drivers who have been tough to beat so far. Luke Browning and Chris Lulham, despite swapping the lead between themselves a couple of times on the opening half a lap, are now, well, will they put together a united front here to stop the Carling cars behind coming through, or are they going to try and settle the victory between themselves, because there is a championship on the line here between these two. It's out on the safety car, Browning backing everybody up. He's chosen to go very late in here as they come through Deers Leap. He now steps on the loud pedal, but that has split the pack quite effectively. One car into the pit lane further back. That was Christian Mansell heading in for repairs, but the leaders come through out of Old Hall Corner. Very wide lines being taken by the 2 Carling drivers there of Zach O'Sullivan and Zane Maloney. Down into Cascades they will go, though single file this time around. Not quite as congested a restart as we had at the initial start of the race. 1 car off in the background, that was Nico Pino. Will he save it? Will he save it? Back in the road, no, gets collected by 1, nearly 2 drivers. Alexei Nasov does a good job to avoid him, but it looked as though maybe Nathan de Villiers was the man unlucky enough to come across him as Nico Pino rejoined the track. And well, in fact, no, because that's de Villiers going off the hairpin, so it's somebody else then that made contact. There we go. Matthias Zagazeta, the number 8 car, has had a spin on the run down the lakeside straight too, and in his eagerness to get going again, has over-rotated the car on the grass and will rejoin eventually outside of the top 15 or so. Back to the front of the field, though, where things are going rather better for Fortec, but they're not really escaping here from the Zach O'Sullivan and Zane Maloney Carling cars behind. We're on board with the 3rd place man O'Sullivan, the man that really needs to try and make some ground up here. If he can overtake even one of the Fortec cars in front of him, then he significantly reduces his deficit in the championship. And into Old Hall Corner they go then. O'Sullivan clips the curb on the apex. They all run wide over the grass street coming out of the corner, and then head down towards Cascades once again. Through this sweeping left-hander back along the lakeside straight. Sullivan just runs a bit too wide again coming out of the left-hander. As Zane Maloney, you can see in 4th, and a bit of a gap back to Nico Verone in 5th. Rafa Martins, though, outside the points at the moment in 11th place, but he might not be for much longer. He's just set the fastest lap, 1:15.38, and there he is, in fact, heading through the Island hairpin. 2 cars side by side in front of him. are Jaden Oyeda and Marin Kramers, and Kramers, that is, I think, going past Oyeda, and Rafa Martins might try to get back up the inside here and regain one of these lost positions through the chicane. He can't get past Oyeda there, but he is clearly a bit quicker than the black car in front of him, and as they accelerate up the hill, Rafa Martins tries to get in the slipstream. Hard to use the toe around this circuit, though. It is a high-speed circuit, surprisingly so, actually. But because there's not really much of a straight here... Oh, Rafa Martins takes too much curb out of Druid's corner, and that grassy moment that ensued has allowed Rafa Martins' teammate, Seb Prio, through. So two of the Arden drivers swapping places. Here's what happens. On board with Rafa, took too much of the second apex curb there at Druids, drifted out wide onto the grass, and then hit that curb too. Launched the car briefly skywards, and he lost a lot of momentum, but did well actually to hang on to the car. Number 38, by the way, being given a black and white warning flag for contact at the chicane. Car number 38 being Jamie Caroline, and that is number 35 that's gone off. Coming out of Cascades, Ollie Bierman's had a spin. Sure if he hit anything, we'll see now, I suppose. There's Bierman, the blue, white and yellow number 35 machine. And they're all running wide, but once you run too wide, it gets very bumpy there, and the car immediately behind him does a terrific job to avoid hitting him. I think that was... no, it wasn't the Sov. Yeah, Hoggard. I think it must have been Jonathan Hoggard. He's got into 8th place as a result of that. And yeah, it was the Fortec car of Hoggard that somehow avoided killing the spinning Ollie Bierman's car. Druids we go then, and back to live pictures now. Hoggard's next target is Jaden Oyeda, who's gained 4 places so far in this race. Hoggard is back to where he started, but he's had to do a fair bit of overtaking to get here after some early delays up at the hairpin. Jonathan Hoggard, it really seems to be the story of his career at the moment. If there's something go wrong out on track, he will always be there. He'll always find himself in the middle of it. Certainly been the way that his F4 iRacing championship has gone so far. Every time there's been a pile-up, Jonathan Hoggard's been in it. Every time someone's spun on the first lap, Jonathan Hoggard's been held up in it. And that's really been hurting his chances to score big points. Hoggard arrives here at Oulton Park, 8th place in the championship. He's had a podium, which came at Brands Hatch in the second race. Had a top 5, a 5th place, in fact, to be place in the first race at Donington. But apart from that, points have not really... He's only scored 1 point outside of those 2 races, which was a 10th place finish in the opening race at Silverstone. So he's only scored points in 3 of the 6 races so far, but 2 of them have been top 5s. 1 was a podium. Mansell, meanwhile, who's got this grid penalty to come... sorry, no, not a grid penalty, but had a time penalty at Silverstone last time, and unfortunately, a bit of a time penalty of another kind issued here at the start of this race as he had to make that unscheduled pit stop for repairs. He fought Abby Pulling now, though. This is the fight going on for 15th place, technically. 14th, really, because Marion Kramers is just in front of them, and Kramers has lost ground in the last lap or so too, I think. I seem to recall that he was in and around the top 10 a lap or so ago. So Christian Mansell catching there for Pulling, who's being held up behind Mansell's teammate at the moment. To the race leaders, and a 0.6 of a second lead at the moment for the leader, Luke Browning. They're all pretty equally spaced out, actually. 6 tenths separate the top 2, then a further 8 tenths back to O'Sullivan in 3rd, who is about 8 tenths clear of Zane Maloney in 4th. This is a typical Oulton Park race where you get a group of cars this evenly matched at the front of the field, a group of drivers this evenly matched as well. Gaining any more than a couple of hundredths on your opponents becomes quite a challenge, especially when you're following in the dirty air behind the cars in front of you. And of course, that's one of the things that is very much replicated within the iRacing sim that the drivers would also have to deal with in the real world. These are high downforce slicks and wings single-seaters, and so the turbulent wake of air from the car's creators, they pass through the air themselves, has much a negative effect on the downforce for the cars behind. So whilst you get that slipstream in a straight line, it then hurts you through particularly high-speed corners like this one at Old Hall. Also started to catch traffic, which I think is Alex Connor, the number 27 car. Yes, it is. It's the Arden machine that's about to go a lap down. In 17th at the moment is Alex Connor. And Alex... not quite as quick as these race leaders, but he'll be given the blue flag, so should know to get out of the way. If they catch him at the wrong point, it could have an effect on this lead battle, but they're going to catch him just coming out of the island hairpin, so he allows Browning, the leader, through. Lullen will also go by, and in fact I think Alex is going to stop at the side of the road there to allow all of our leading quartet of drivers through. These 4 drivers, by the way, are just over 2.5 seconds clear of Nico Verone in 5th, who's 1.7 or 1.5 actually now seconds ahead of Mikael Grundtvig, who is in 6th. 7th is Jonathan Hoggard, 8th Rafa Martins, 9th Jaden Oyeda, and 10th place for Seb Prio, who finally got his first podium of the season last time out at Silverstone, did Seb. So what's been a bit of a disastrous season for him so far, but that podium, the 2nd place in race 1, unfortunately was followed not by a repeat in race 2, but by contact with Christian Mansell, which put him out of the points. You know, Christian, he's still following Abby Pulling around, who in turn has now caught Marion Kramers, but hasn't been able to find a way through. But Abby is definitely quicker up the hill. This is where the slipstream starts to help you, but then as you get into the right-hander at Druids, all of a sudden being that close to the car in front of you proves to be detrimental to your speed through the turn. So Marion Kramer was able to use that to his advantage to pull clear. Final quarter of the race now, though, so I'm starting to run out for all of these drivers if they want to gain any further ground. You score points, remember, in the top 10 in the race, so you've got to get a little bit further forward than these drivers are to score any meaningful points in the races this season. Happy Pulling really carries a lot of speed there into Cascade, a bit too much in the end because she drifts wide over the grass coming out of the turn, and we've seen how troublesome that can be. Now, on my timing screen, I can see that Zane Maloney is off the track and he's fallen to 10th place. There he is. He's off down at Knickerbrook Corner. That is big, big news for the reigning British Formula 4 champion. Zane Maloney off down at the chicane. We're going to see him just touch the grass there, turning into Knickerbrook again. A very common mistake to make, but I think he's been beached in the gravel. Yeah, he's stranded on the edge of the gravel and has had to fast track to the pit lane. So Zane Maloney is not going to score any points from this race. That is not what his championship challenge needed. There he is, fast tracking back to the pit lane, Zane Maloney. What a shame, though, from running in 4th position, just pushing a bit too hard to keep up with the top 3. And Zane Maloney will not be repeating his clean sweep of victories from Oulton Park that he enjoyed in the Real World Championship last year, but because of the reversed grid, the benefit actually come race 2, and that's kind of been what we've seen from him this season. He doesn't always have the best result in the first race of the night, then seems to find himself every time up at the sharp end of the grid for race number 2. His first top 5 of the year in a reversed grid race at Donington Park, and then got his first podium of the year last time out at Silverstone in a reversed grid race as well, with a 3rd place finish. So Zane Maloney, that might not be the last we see of him at the front of the field tonight. That takes the pressure off our podium runners now, though, and these are the top 3 in the championship still, so the cream very much rising to the top here. And for Zach O'Sullivan, yes, he'll be disappointed that he's not beating the Fortec drivers. Yes, he'll be disappointed that they're going to continue to pull away from him in the championship, but this is still a solid result for Zach, who has been on the podium already 3 times, including that victory at Silverstone in the opening race last week. Therefore, be another podium result, his 4th of the season. And as things stand, he would hold on to 3rd place in the championship, but slips now to about 24 points off the points lead, which would still be held by Chris Lullen. The positions changing, all the points definitely coming down here between Lullen and Browning, with Browning out in front at the moment. Grundtvig going through up the hill. Mikael is in 5th place. Now, this has been a quiet but really, really strong performance for Mikael Grundtvig, because Mikael started in 16th place, and the number 44 car has worked its way now into the top 5. And well, Mikael Grundtvig, the Danish driver, 16 years of age, already a race winner in the Danish and the French Formula 4 championships, was hoping to switch to the British Formula 4 Championship in 2020, and it looks hopefully as if that will get to go ahead later on in the season when we get back to racing. Alongside Ginetta Junior champion James Headley and Abby Pulling at JHR. JHR, therefore, the team for whom he is racing in the iRacing Trophy. And JHR are 4th place at the moment in the team's championship. About 21 points coming into this race behind Arden in the battle for 3rd. chicane. Oh, yeah, so Christian Mansell has had a spin at the hairpin, and that means that Mansell, who was having a bit of a disappointing race anyway, but he was a couple of seconds behind Abby Pulling and Marion Kramers. He's now 15 seconds behind them, but Kramers, actually, I can see, has lost out to Pulling anyway, so Abby Pulling has gone through now into that. In fact, there she is, going through Old Hall Corner. She's now into 13th place, 2.8 seconds behind Alexei Nasov, the driver with whom she tangled at Silverstone, so I'm sure she'd love to get one over Alexei. She's running out of time because we may be on the final one more lap after this one. I think we should just about squeeze another lap out of the race, and that last lap ball though will be shown to Luke Browning, who comes through Lodge Corner over Deers Leap. The last lap ball now then, one more lap around the Oulton Park Island circuit for the local boy, so I'm sure this race win will mean a bit more to him even than his 2 that he had earlier on in the season. This will mean actually that he will become the, I hate this word, winningest driver of the season. He'll become the first driver to hit 3 race victories. Also means that he's won races, or will have, provided he gets around this final lap. Let's not put the mockers on him just yet, but if he does achieve it, he'll have won at 3 of the 4 tracks that we visited so far. Only Silverstone has the top step of the podium eluded him, and he did manage to get a 2nd place there. So that is how you put together a championship campaign. And Luke Browning, of course, knows this well. The driver of the number 11 car comes through Knickerbrook Corner, raced in to juniors before debuting in British Formula 4 last year with Richardson Racing. Had a bit of an up and down year, but did win 2 races, including a wet weather race at Brands Hatch. Had a couple of pole positions too. Switching to Fortec for 2020. He's hoping that the British Formula 4 Championship might become his. This race win, though, is going to put him 1 step closer to the championship lead in the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy as well. He comes through Deers Leap, he crosses the start-finish line, and Luke Browning wins round number 7 of the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy, and what a critical win that could prove to be. His teammate Chris Lulham comes home in 2nd place. The gap between the two of them will shrink, therefore, by 7 championship points after this race. Zach O'Sullivan is 3rd, and he'll lose a bit more ground to those 2 in the championship race as a result. Nico Verone, another strong finish there in 4th place, in position from which he finished the 2nd race of the night yesterday in the British Formula 4 Championship. Mikael Grundtvig is rounding out the top 5 in this race. Jonathan Hoggard 6th, Rafa Martin 7th. A bit disappointed with that, I think, after a strong qualifying effort. 8th place for Jaden Ayeda. Seb Prio comes home in 9th. Nathan de Villiers will round out the points. There goes Abby Pulling. She's 11th. So she did get past Alexei Nasov. He must have had an off, I think, on the previous lap, because Alexei was ahead of her by a couple of seconds, but he's not yet crossed the line. In fact, there he is. He's crawling to the line to try and get, now this is interesting, this is all to try and get a better grid position for race number 2, and I think that might be what Marion Kramers is doing as well. We'll have to wait and see whether or not this works, but of course it's a full reversed grid. Anyone that has completed 75% distance of this race and is running at the line will be eligible for the full reversed grid. So if you're the last of the classified finishers in this race, then you will be on pole position for the next one. But I don't think Blake, the clerk of the course, is going to look fondly upon that. But well, provisionally, Nasov ends up in 13th and Marion Kramers 17th, but he was a lap further back. So we'll see what happens with that one. But this is your provisional result. I'm pretty sure nothing will change at the very front. And that's where we found the Fortec boys once again. Luke Browning and Chris Lulham, the top 2. Browning, though, is Lulham's championship advantage with that victory. Zach O'Sullivan is 3rd, Nico Verone 4th, and Mikael Grundtvig in 5th. Then Jonathan Hoggard, Rafa Martins, Jaden Oyeda, Seb Prio, and Nathan de Villiers will round out the top 10. Abby Pulling snatched 11th on the final lap ahead of Christian Mansell 12th. Alexei Nasov was 13th. Ahead of Alex Connor in 14th, then Zane Maloney 15th. Now, he genuinely lost ground after a spin and could genuinely benefit from the reverse grid as a result. Nico Pino was in 16th, Marion Kramer 17th, but we saw he'd been stopped at the line for a while too. 18th for Ollie Bierman. Not convinced he was running at the flag though, but Horatio Fitzsimon was, and he was classified in 19th. Then Matthias Zagazzetta was 4 laps down, Jamie Caroline 9 laps down, unfortunately not running at the end, whilst Josh Skelton was an early retirement as well, only completing the opening lap of the race. Dramatic stuff then, but really useful championship points there for Luke Browning, who takes the 25 points for a race victory, and with it his third race victory of the year. He therefore moves on to 107 points. 18 points go the way of Chris Lulham, so it's 2 points between them now as we go into the reversed grid race, in which they will both start alongside each other again, but of course quite a bit further down the order than they were for this one. So the Fortec drivers have to maybe work together a little bit, at least in the early stages, just to make sure that they don't end up getting tangled up in any incidents and that they can both make the best progress possible. Our drivers are on the podium, ready to have a chat with us. Let's drag Luke Browning in then, our race winner, winningest driver of the season so far. Luke, that's your third win of the year, and it moves you now to within just 2 points of Chris for the championship. Well done.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, I really enjoyed that one. Home track, although we're not actually there. Well, I'm pretty close now, sitting at home, but yeah, it's great to go around there virtually as well.
I know we're both a bit biased being Northerners, but it is the best track in the world, isn't it? And it's hard to overtake at. So that's why you were so determined not to let Chris through there in the first couple of corners.
Yeah, exactly. I knew as soon as you get in that dirty air, if you've got someone at the same pace, you got absolutely no chance of overtaking around here. And it's yeah, I knew qualifying would be so important. So it was yeah, it was great to get a pole, but we're so close, me and Chris now. So it's yeah, it's awesome just to be 1-2.
Given the fact that you had that disastrous second race at Brands where you didn't score any points, you only managed 2 points out of race 1 at Silverstone as well. These race wins are now becoming more important, aren't they? Because you've got to try and bounce back with no drop scores to save you either. Each race win you get, of course, brings you closer and closer to Chris at the top of the points.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it'll all be about surviving race 2. It has been every round really. The only time that I've scored, yeah, quite minimal points usually is if I've had a shunt in race 2. So yeah, I've just got to focus on. Well, I just try not to try and stay way out of all the carnage.
Yeah, good luck with that. It's going to be an interesting run through the first few corners, I think, isn't it? But congratulations anyway on the race win, Luke. Yeah, best of luck for that second race.
Thank you very much.
Second place finisher in the race was Chris Lulham. I'll drag in now as, oops, that's Luke. Sorry, Luke. Chris Lulham, there we go. Chris, congratulations on second place. You gave Luke everything you had in the first couple of corners there. If you could have got through at the start, do you think you could have held him off?
Yeah, I do think, to be fair, it was just I didn't want to cause any crashes at the start, so I played it safe. But as soon as you got close behind, the dirty air from the car in front made it pretty much impossible to overtake a car on the same lap time. But if I did get in front, I think I would have had a good chance for the win.
You two are so evenly matched, and that's what Luke's just been saying to us as well, that he really enjoys racing against you because there is nothing to choose between your pace. As we get further into this championship now, are teammates, so how does that affect the way that you might have to start racing each other as you get down to the business end of the championship?
I think for sure just be a matter of respect. We both respect each other a lot. We're friends off the track, but we won't do anything stupid or have any huge fights. But we will have a fair fight for the lead if it comes down to that.
About the game plan for race 2 then, because obviously you'll both be starting deep in the field, but you'll both be together. As important as it is to take points out of each other, is there a bit of a plan to work together, at least just for the first lap or so, just to try and stay out of trouble?
I think at the start we'll be racing our own race, trying to avoid crashes. Mainly will be the biggest thing. But yeah, for sure, if we're right next to each other, we'll give each other a bit more room. What's that? Something like that.
Sounds like a plan. We'll see how that goes once we get into the second race. Thanks, Chris, for joining us in the comms box. He needs to go and get ready for the second race now, but we can bring in Zach O'Sullivan. And Zach O'Sullivan, third place in the championship, third place in that race as well, Zach. Just didn't quite seem to have the pace to go after those Fortec boys, but a solid result nonetheless.
Yeah, it's all I could have really asked for. They were always going to be quick and you come into the race. So yeah, I got a good start, managed to make a move on Rafael Martins, and then unfortunately the safety car came out for a bit, which kind of halted my progress. And then on the restart, I got quite a good run on Chris Lulham, and had a few opportunities that I couldn't quite capitalise on, but I stayed close. Eventually, I got kind of stuck in the dirty air and started to drop off. So yeah, that was really the story of my race, and I ended up being kind of stuck in no man's land for the last sort of 10 laps.
Things have definitely been a bit up and down for you this season. It started off really well at Donington with those 2 podiums, but then Brands Hatch wasn't great, just 8 points scored there, and then Silverstone seemed to be going the same sort of way with a sort of back end of the top 10 result in race 1. How much extra confidence, though, did that win in the reverse grid race last time out give you, and how much of that maybe can you use to your advantage in the reverse grid race tonight?
I'd say I always kind of had the confidence in myself because all the results that I didn't end up having any points or scoring very little points were kind of out of my own fault. So I was taken out twice at Brands, and that was the same at Silverstone. So I kind of knew I was fast, and then there's a kind of silver lining around every cloud really because the crash in race 1 put me near the front-ish for race 2 at Silverstone, which I managed to work through the field and win, obviously, as you said.
Yeah, and you could do with a few more of those wins, I think, couldn't you? Because whilst you maintain your 3rd place in the championship, you are now 24 points off Chris Lulham in the championship lead. We're halfway through the championship now as well. So what's it going to take to beat those two moving forward, not only into the reverse grid race tonight, but just week in, week out? You've got to try and take some points out of them, haven't you?
Yeah, I think so. I think this reverse grid race and all the following reverse grid races are going to be great opportunities because there's always the element of being taken out or having to avoid accidents. So if I can try and capitalize on that and do my best to avoid all of that, this could be a big points game for me, but I have to wait and see, really.
Absolutely. Well, best of luck for race number 2. I think it'll be an eventful first few laps. So if you can try and stay out of trouble there, then hopefully some more points might be yours.
Thank you.
Zach, so there we go then. They are your podium finishers from our first race of the evening here at Oulton Park. Race number 2 will be coming up very, very shortly. The usual switching of sessions going on now as we prepare for that reversed grid encounter. You will not want to miss it because, as we've made the point on several occasions tonight, overtaking at Oulton is not easy. So if you start putting drivers at the front of the grid, maybe don't have the outright race pace to run away and dominate, and create some pretty congested racing behind them. So I think this is going to be a really, really good second race of the night to kickstart the second half of the championship that is being led still by Chris Lulham, provisionally by just 2 points over Luke Browning. It's getting tight at the top. You will not want to miss the second race of the night here on Year One Racing TV, coming up very shortly. What we're going to do now, I think, is take a very quick break so we can jump in the new session, after which we'll hear from Damien Meaden, get his weekly report on all things Formula 4 and get his thoughts on what's been going on out on track so far tonight. In the meantime, we'll leave you with a message from one of our partners, the Momentum Social Group, who provide digital, social and creative work within a range of high-profile clients in motorsport, including the British Touring Car Championship, QuickFit, Dunlop, and of course, the British Formula 4 Championship itself. We're going to take a look now at some of what they've been getting up to in helping us put this iRacing series together, and also how they help with the Real World Championships offering to fans online and social media.
The team at Momentum Social has a strong history in the Toka paddock, and this is our second season working with the British Formula 4 Championship, providing video and creative services. As the first rung on the ladder towards Formula 1, the British Formula 4 Championship is pivotal in the young driver's racing career. Working with the championship, we wanted to give fans an exclusive look into what a race weekend is like from the driver's perspective, with behind-the-scenes access and exclusive content. Now in collaboration with Year One TV and Jacob Ebury Photography, we're helping to bring you the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy, which has already seen some great racing so far this season. Can't wait to see you at the next one.
Welcome back, everyone. After a thoroughly entertaining first race of the night here at Oulton Park for the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy, we're now getting set for even more entertainment and excitement and unpredictability, because the reversed grid second race is just about 4 or so minutes away, and the drivers are rejoining the session. Most of them, in fact, are back in now, enjoying the 10 minutes of free practice that they're allocated with before the race gets underway, which we will go racing for another 20 minutes around the Oulton Park Island circuit, a circuit that is based in the Cheshire countryside, one of the real drivers' favourites, and it's been translated really nicely, I must say, onto this iRacing platform, although it is for the first time, actually, in all of the esports and sim racing commentary I've been doing over recent weeks, this is the one that I'm finding the hardest, because I really have been missing my lazy Sunday afternoons sat on the spectator banks at Oulton Park, and seeing them all accurately recreated here on iRacing is giving me some serious withdrawal symptoms, but with a bit of luck, it won't be too much longer before we all get back out there backside, as long as we all stay safe, stay sensible, common sense, and hopefully we'll be able to get the real world of motorsport back up and running within the next month or so. Well, the drivers, as I said, are out there enjoying not the spectator bankings, but the very, very spectacular Oulton Park circuit itself. And after a first race that was won from pole position by Luke Browning, he takes his third victory of the year to move now to within just 2 points of the championship lead, which is still held by his teammate Chris Lulham. But that margin comes down by 7 points after race 1, because you score 25 points for a win, you score 18 for finishing in second place. It's the biggest swing in points between any two positions, consecutive positions on the track. All of the it's then 15 points for third, which is only a point drop, and then 10 points for fourth, which is only a 2 point further drop. So it's definitely is well to win races, and Luke Browning has now won more races than anybody else. So if he can score some decent points out of race number 2 here, then I think he's absolutely on course to maybe take that championship lead away from his teammates. Well, very quickly, we've got about 2 minutes left before the cars start gridding up for our second race. Let's drag in Damien Meaden, shall we then, who is joining us as ever to give us his mid-session or mid-race thoughts. Damien, an entertaining first race, kind of what we expected, I think, though the run into the first corner was always going to be important, and Luke Browning was not letting Chris Lulham through.
Yeah, good evening, Andy. Evening, everybody. I have to say that billing makes me sound far more like an expert pundit than I am, but we'll give it a go. Yeah, fantastically managed race from the two Fortec guys, Browning and Lulham. You did think maybe on the opening lap there was going to be a bit of wheel banging or a bit of argy-bargy at Cascades, but they managed to hold it together. And from there, really, I think they worked quite well in tandem, Luke Browning and Chris Lulham, just keeping the gap to Zach O'Sullivan behind.
Yeah, which is key, because of course O'Sullivan is not that far behind them in the points right now either. Zach, though, we were just talking to him then on the podium, remains quite hopeful that he can still close in on the Fortec drivers. He just needs to try and start consistently winning more races, but O'Sullivan's been there or thereabouts all season long. As we know from watching the British Formula 4 Championship in recent seasons, championship leaders, however dominant they've been by the time we get to the halfway mark of the season, do not always have it their own way in the run into the championship decider.
No, I think in the real world championship, it's 30 races run across 10 events, so it is an awfully long season to have to try and manage that championship push, and that's one of the things the graduates of the championship often say, in later years, that's where F4 has helped. They go on to higher up championships that don't run as long throughout the course of the season, but they've still got that same mentality of get as many points as you can from each race, always maximise everything you can from yourself and from the car, and the rest of it you can't control. So yeah, we are starting to see it ebb and flow a little bit. I think O'Sullivan will be in there by the end. I completely agree with you, and these reverse grid races have been throwing up a lot of chaos and a lot of mixed results recently, so this may be an opportunity for him to just capitalise before we get to the next round.
I'll give a shout out as well to a couple of drivers who scored season best finishes in the previous race. Mikael Grundtvig got himself a top 5 finish for the first time this season. In fact, it was the first points he scored since a 10th place finish at Donington at the start of the year. Also, Rafa Martins, despite being involved in contact early on, was able to work his way through to score 6 points. Again, only the second time he's been in the points so far this season. Now, we've got cars griding up here, and I think, yeah, we are about ready to go. So, Damien, we may have to leave you there, I'm afraid, but we'll maybe drag you back in again at the end of the night, because the grid is formed. It's a reverse grid. Matthias Zagazeta and Horatio Fitzsimon on row 1, Marion Kramers and Zane Maloney row 2, then Alex Connor, Alexei Nasov, Christian Mansell, Nico Pino, Abby Pulling, and Nathan de Villiers to round out the top 10. Don't forget our top 3 from race 1 start 17th, 18th, and 19th, respectively. Getting ready to go racing then here at Oulton Park. Away they go, and it's a good start made by Horatio Fitzsimon. The black car on the inside of road 1 goes through, and there's contact further back. Abby Pulling involved. One car off into the barriers. That's Rafa Martins again, I think, who's tangled with Abby Pulling at the start of the race. Let's hope that our championship contenders got through that. I think they just about did. They have not been too badly delayed, but the safety car is coming out because we've got more drama, I think, down at Cascades. Our timing screen's going haywire, telling me that Horatio Fitzsimon's been off the road, which indeed he has, in a big, big way. Josh Skelton's been off, Jaden Oyeda's been off, Zagazeta is in the pits, Mikael Gruntvig's in the pits. There's Oyeda, who has exited onto the outside of the track, going through Cascades. The safety car, therefore, being scrambled yet again. Now, I believe you're seeing a replay here of some of the stuff that happened at the start. Oh, there we go. Also, contact between Pulling and one of the Carling cars. I think possibly... Oh, didn't quite catch the number there before it disappeared to the side of the road. And then they got down to Cascades. And, yeah, I think it was Mikael Gruntvig that she tangled with. And he continues then with lots of damage. And then it's going to be another replay here, possibly... So Pulling gets sideways, spins into the pack, and then it's on from there, really. Very, very similar to incidents that we've seen at previous races, particularly at the start of the races. Rafa Martins end up getting caught up in some contact there again, I think, too. And, yeah, the rest of the field went down into Cascades, where they continued to kick off well and truly with Horatio Fitzsimon in trouble. He's dropped down to 17th, but I think he's limping back to the pit lane after this contact. And Alexei Nasov has also lost 7 places. Christian Mansell likewise. There you can see the cars joining through Cascades Corner. So, real mess, as we can see here at the start of race number 2. It's a narrow pit straight, though. We've seen this kind of thing inspire an awful lot over the years at Oulton Park. Will continue to do so, I reckon. There's Alexei Nasov. Now, he might not have got any damage there, or at least not significant damage. He's been able to rejoin. The car looks like it's tracking more or less straight. Nathan de Villiers has also rejoined and not headed for the pit lane. These 2 drivers still in the pits are Matthias Zagazeta and Mikael Gruntvig, so Abby Pulling's carried on. Oyeda going through as well there, down in 17th place, and he dips his way back through towards the pits. Horatio Fitzsimon as well. So back to live pictures then, I believe. Oh, yeah, so sorry, there's a slight technical issue, meaning I wasn't seeing all of those replays, but we are now back to live conditions, and that man, Zane Maloney, got the lead. Who'd have thought it, hey? The man that won all 3 races at Oulton Park in the Real Championship last year has got the advantage here after disappointing first race, which actually ironically ended up helping him out here at the start of race number 2. Nico Pino is second. He's gained 6 places from where he started. Seb Prio has picked up 8 spots, started out of the top 10. He is in 3rd place at the moment, so Seb Prio possibly on for another podium finish here if he has a little bit of luck. It's Marion Kramers, who looks like he's been picked up by the safety car, so that's why the leaders were going so slowly. They've actually overtaken the safety car. They're having to wait for it to catch back up again, so this is going to take a little bit of time to sort out. Marion Kramers is the 4th place car, so the cars you're seeing queuing up here are 4th on back. So Kramers 4th, Alex Connor is 5th. He's, I think, the only driver in the entire field still running in the position in which he started. He started 5th, he's still in 5th place at the moment. Then it's Jonathan Hogarth 6th, Nico Verone 7th, 8th Chris Lulham, and 9th Luke Browning. So that's the thing that I was really wanting to see. Those 2 have made much better progress than Zach O'Sullivan, and critically, it is Lulham still ahead of Browning as well. Remember, they started together in 18th and 19th places, with Lulham 18th and Browning 19th. They've gained 10 places each, but Lulham is still in front of Luke. 8th and 9th overall, with Ollie Bierman 10th, and Zach O'Sullivan not quite able to go with the Fortec drivers. He started ahead of them. He's now a few places behind at the end of the now 2nd lap of racing. The field then working its way through across the start-finish line onto another lap, but all happening behind the safety car. They have now caught the safety car, at least, the race leaders. So Zane Maloney there, you can see weaving his tyres around, going through Old Hall Corner, has the advantage, and Zane is still looking for his first victory of the season. And only the one podium as well at Silverstone. Arguably should have had a podium at Brands Hatch, but he had contact with his teammate at the start of the first race at Brands Hatch. That put him down the order with some damage, and then had a rather unique connection issue in the second race when he was running again in contention for a podium. And so unfortunately that means that he of Brands Hatch. And so yeah, Zane Maloney then the lead now. What's going to go wrong next time? I suppose that's what he might be thinking, because every time he gets himself into this position, something seems to go awry. Definitely got the speed. We know he's good around Oulton Park. He's everywhere, let's be honest. And with that position that he's managed to buy himself now, maybe the race victory could be on its way to him. Someone else, I think, has just gone to the pit lane, because I noticed that Chris Lullum and Luke Browning, who had just said had gained 10 places from where they started, have actually picked up another one now. They're 7th and 8th, respectively. Zach O'Sullivan is, so Marion Kramers, who was 4th, dropped down to 9th behind the safety car. That's interesting. I'll tell you why, I'm afraid, but Marion Kramers, I made the point about a lap ago that he was the driver that had been picked up by the safety car and that he was running in 4th place, but he no longer is. He's down in 9th place now. Lullum and Browning both gone ahead of him, but Ollie Bierman and Zach O'Sullivan still sat behind. Lights then, I think, are out on the safety car, so we should be going racing this time. And as we saw in race number 1, a safety car at the end of lap 1. It takes a couple of laps to get everything cleared up, get everyone gathered back together, but then we can go racing in 20 minutes. 8th round of the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy. Zane Maloney has Nico Pino behind him. Nico Pino, another driver who's not been able to score actually any points. One of 3 drivers yet to score points this year. Louis Foster and Horatio Fitzsimon being the other 2, but Fitzsimon's only done a part season, so too Louis Foster. So Nico Pino, the one that really does need to try and score some points. He had to miss, though, around, I think it was Brands Hatch due to connection issues. So Nico in 2nd place. This is by far the best we've seen out of him so far this season. Seb Prio looking to try and repeat his podium from Silverstone last time out. He was 3rd in race 1 there. He runs 3rd in race 2 here at Oulton Park. And Zane Maloney, unlike Luke Browning in race number 1, has gone early and he's left everyone else behind. Look, Seb Prio desperately trying to get up the inside of Nico Pino for 2nd place into Old Hall Corner. Can't quite get through there. He's got his teammate Alex Connor behind him, maybe. Oh, and around goes Pino! Nico Pino loses it out of Old Hall Corner. He clatters into the barrier spectacularly. And as he rejoins the track, that was Luke Browning. Yeah, Luke Browning has been tangled up there with the accident for Nico Pino, and Browning, the 2nd place man in the championship, has big damage. He's fallen right down the order. The number 3 car, Rafa Martins, comes through with a bit of damage as well, but that is a huge story for the championship. Rafa Martins in the Arden car has unfortunately been taken out in an accident that was not of his own making, and he will now have to try and limp back round. Chris Lullum was also delayed, though. He's off the track at the moment, down in 14th, so actually they both been caught up in that, I think. And Lullum was a separate incident down at the hairpin, look. So Chris Lullum and Luke Browning both with big damage. Luke Browning has fast-tracked to the pit lane, so has Lullum. So the top 2 in the championship are both in the pits with a lot of damage. Nico Pino, unsurprisingly, has also headed for the pit lane. That's what happened to Lullum. Contact on the way into the hairpin. That's a very bizarre situation indeed. And so all of a sudden, the attention now has to turn to Zach O'Sullivan, because Zach O'Sullivan is in 6th position now, and he's quicker than the 5th position, in fact. 5th place for Zach O'Sullivan. He could still find his way onto the podium. Jonathan Hoggard, we're seeing, has had a moment as well, or you're seeing. Zane Maloney has, Maloney's disappeared. So what's happened to, it's all going wrong here. Zane Maloney has disappeared altogether, and that means that Jonathan Hoggard has got the race lead. Oh, and there's contact down at Lodge as well there between the Arden cars. Maloney had a spin. And then was collected by somebody else on the run into Lodge Corner, and someone else. 142 car goes around there by the looks of it into Lodge. And I'm afraid I can't begin to explain what's going on here at Oulton Park, but there's something in the water, clearly. Jonathan Hoggard has got himself the lead of the race. Nico Verone is second, Alex Connor is in third, and then Marion Kramers and Zach O'Sullivan fourth and fifth. So Zach O'Sullivan has gained 12 positions and right now is on course to massively outscore his big championship rivals. So this is real drama. And there's another crash through Lodge Corner, and that is Alex Connor with Marion Kramers. So that means Sullivan could gain even more here now. Marion Kramers then rejoins even further down the order than he was, down in 7th place now. But actually, Alexei Nasov and Christian Mansell have gone through, so I think O'Sullivan was slightly delayed in that. He now fights back up the inside of Christian Mansell into Cascades and will go back through. But what a topsy-turvy. There are hardly any cars still running. I think we've got about 10 cars still out on track right now, and they're being led by 2.8 seconds by Jonathan Hoggard. Nico Verone second, Nasov in third, and that's the fight for 4th place there going through the hairpin. There's your race, your runner-up at the moment, Nico Verone, who did win a British Formula 3 iRacing race here yesterday evening. All with Christian Mansell, he runs in 5th, so Mansell didn't fight his teammate too hard there, understandably. Not only is this a good chance for O'Sullivan to take points out of and Browning for the Drivers' Championship, but also Carlin, who are languishing a little bit behind Fortec. They were almost 50 points behind them arriving here at Oulton Park, and of course Fortec outscored them in race 1 as well. All of a sudden, Carlin have a real chance to gain some points back. That's not the way to do it, though, with Christian Mansell having a big moment through Druid's Corner, and he could be caught here by Nathan de Villiers before too much longer. In fact, he has been. De Villiers there in the Arden machine right behind. But what can Zach O'Sullivan make of this race? Zach O'Sullivan comes across the start-finish line then. He is chasing down Alexei Nasov in front of him. Nico Verone, by the way, just set the fastest lap at 1:14.35, but was only about a tenth of a second quicker than Hoggard, so the gap still stands at 2.5 seconds. Zach O'Sullivan, who got his first win of the season at Silverstone in the reverse grid race a week ago. Maybe a win might be a stretch in this race since he's about 5 seconds or so off the lead, but he could definitely get a podium because he's already caught Alexei Nasov. The Russian driver drifts out a bit wide through the hairpin, and here comes O'Sullivan with a much better run over the hill. I don't think he's quite close enough to have a lunge into the Hislop chicane, but he's clearly coming with pace, and if he can find a way through quickly, he's still got just under half the race to go to try and set after the top two. More than with the championship contender, and my word, will he be a championship contender after this race if he can get himself onto the podium and score 15 championship points. The gap between himself and the Fortec drivers will almost completely disappear. Takes the wide line through Druids, tries to carry more speed out of the corner. He's got the slipstream underneath the Paul Warwick Bridge into the final turn at Lodge, and the soft nose in. He pulls to the inside of the road to defend. To the outside goes Zach O'Sullivan. Again, he tries to get the switch back off the corner. Look at the extra momentum that he carries over Deersley, but once again the soft gets to the right hand side of the road to defend. They're almost going to bang wheels. O'Sullivan can't afford contact here, and that's another thing that the soft will know and try to use to his advantage. He knows that O'Sullivan can't afford to take a huge risk here, and the more the soft defends, the more it backs O'Sullivan up. Oh, at the inside looked O'Sullivan into Cascades. That was a really risky manoeuvre. He backed out of it before contact was made, but I think he's starting to get a bit frustrated now. Alexei Nasov continues to drive down the inside of the road into the Island hairpin, and look at all of the other cars arriving on their tail. Christian Mansell, Nathan de Villiers, Marion Kramers. This is soon to be a 5-way fight for a podium place. The only saving grace for O'Sullivan is that 2 of the 3 drivers catching them are his teammates, so at least he doesn't have to worry quite as much maybe about those drivers making life difficult for him. He's got a bit of front wing damage as well, Zach O'Sullivan, but it does not slow him down over Clay Hill, and for the second lap in succession he will try to build an attack here through the double apex right-hander at Druid's Corner, tries to get that second apex hooked up nicely, which he does, carries more speed on the exit, but the Sov knows that all he has to do is place the car down the right-hand side of the road, and now O'Sullivan daren't go to the outside because there are cars behind ready to attack. Christian Mansell is only a car length or so behind him, and this now makes Zach O'Sullivan's job doubly difficult because he wants to focus all of his attentions here on overtaking the soft for third, but he knows that if he goes for a move and leaves the door open for Mansell behind, Christian may not have any choice but to attack his teammate because he too is feeling the pressure from the ardent driver of Nathan de Villiers behind. Stunning racing now. It was a bit of a messy first half of the race, but after the safety car and the initial squabbling that brought about, we've seen some brilliant wheel-to-wheel action. Move being made there by Marion Kramers at the inside of Nathan de Villiers. That's music to the ears of Zach O'Sullivan because now the next 2 drivers behind him are his Carlin teammates. Nosov, though, is not in this for any individual team. He is a privateer, not scoring points, therefore, for the team's championship, and having missed the first couple of rounds of the championship altogether, really thinking about championship points particularly. He just wants to try and get more podiums and later on in the season fight for more race victories. Nosov, though, is actually 10th place in the points, despite only competing in 2 races, or 3 races now so far. Had a podium and a 4th place finish from Silverstone last time out, did Nosov, one of the more consistent drivers of the night. And despite not scoring points in race 1 tonight at Oulton Park, he is running well in race number 2. Across the start-finish line they go then towards Oulton corner, and I thought maybe Zach O'Sullivan was going to have a lunge there up the inside. But no, he was too far back in the end. They round Old Hall down the avenue through Cascades, and O'Sullivan is starting to get away again from Mansell and Kramers and De Villiers, so this now means he's not under any pressure. He might have a go into the hairpin, but Nosov I thought for a moment he covered it, but he misses the apex. There was half a chance there for Zach O'Sullivan to squirrel his way up the inside. He couldn't do it there either, so still Nosov hanging on. The field, you're not missing anything. Jonathan Hoggard is 1.8 seconds clear of Nico Verone now, and Jonathan Hoggard, another driver really in need of a victory, hasn't won a race yet this year. In fact, he's only had 1 podium, which is really a bit of a surprise for the Fortec Motorsport superstar. Won the most races in his final British Formula 4 season in 2018. Only 3rd in the championship last year. He was runner-up in the British Formula 3 championship last season, though, so it's about time that we had Hoggard on the top step of the podium. Who will be joining him on the podium? That's the big question. Still 2nd place is held comfortably by Nico Verone, but for 3rd it is any one of 5 drivers, because as Alexei Nosov starts to defend again, cars behind are getting closer and closer once more. Zach O'Sullivan weaving around, trying desperately to outfox the Russian youngster in front of him. Christian Mansell using all of the road and a little bit more coming out of Old Hall corner, gets a bit sideways too, but he actually seems to have the quicker run out of the turn of all 3. He's getting away from Kramers and De Villiers, and so he's now right on the tail once more of the 3rd place battle. As frustrating as this is for Zach O'Sullivan, I don't really think that Nosov's doing anything wrong. He's not making excessive moves. He's not weaving around all over the road. He's not making late moves to defend the inside line. He's picking a line. He's committing to that defensive line into the key overtaking areas, and he is not leaving the door open on the exit of the corner for Zach O'Sullivan to come through either. Traffic up the road. Now, this could help them possibly, or could help Sullivan possibly, but it stays well out of the way, gets on the grass to avoid delaying the race leaders. Ratio Fitzsimon, I think that was, who is still 14th despite being 2 laps down. 9 cars still on the lead lap, and in 9th place is Jamie Caroline on his debut in the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy. Jamie Caroline is in 9th position, just 5.5 seconds behind Alex Connor, so that could be another battle to watch towards the end of the race. But right now we daren't take our eyes away from this fight for 3rd, as Sullivan, well, he's starting to run out of ideas now, I think. I don't know where he's going to be able to make this move on Nosov. Nosov has all of the usual overtaking opportunities covered. Old Hall corner, he gets a good run into there, defending well into the hairpin, he's defending well into Lodge. Realistically, it will take a mistake here, I think, for O'Sullivan to get through. Not going to be able to just launch an attack up the inside, I don't think, without taking the risk of making contact. And he's starting to realise much the same sort of thing now, because there isn't quite the same amount of thinking around from side to side going on from O'Sullivan. Right on board with him as he feeds his way through the chicane there, just avoiding the tyres on the apexes of the corners, which will rip a wheel off in a heartbeat. Got to really try and stay away from them. Over Clay Hill again. To the inside, looks to the outside. Nosov defends into Druids, which is not really an overtaking opportunity, so it's maybe a strange choice to take the inside line there because it slows him down on the exit. O'Sullivan really wants that inside line, but Alexei is not going to give it to him. They turn through the right-hander once again. O'Sullivan inching further towards the 3rd place car. You can see the effect of the slipstream there across the start-finish line through Old Hall. They both run wide over the grasscrete. All the speed they can. I know it looks like they're being fairly liberal with track limits, but it is the same rule for everyone. It's a slightly more lenient track limit system in use for this particular championship than they would have in the real world, but it is the same for everyone. It's not like one driver is getting away with it whilst the others aren't. It's an automated system, so the can be equal for all of the drivers. Now, this gap, the reason I paused then is because I was just double checking that I was seeing this right. This gap has really come down all of a sudden. The previous lap for Jonathan Hoggard was about half a second slower than Nico Verone. So Verone is catching Hoggard pretty rapidly, and he's continuing to take time out of him on this lap as well. This is the 12th lap of the race. They're into the closing stages now, but it is... I think this might be the last lap that they're about to start. So has Jonathan Hoggard got enough in hand here, or is Nico Verone going to come through and take the race victory instead? They are both looking for their first victory. Sorry, no, they're not, excuse me. Hoggard's looking for his first victory. Verone, of course, won at Brands Hatch. So Verone has already tasted the winner's champagne, and Hoggard was a bit wayward through Old Hall Corner. So Nico Verone is right there with him now. Cascades, we know Verone is good in this car. Both of these drivers have British Formula 3 success. They're both race winners in the British Formula 3 Championship last year. Verone, really sends it in on the brakes a bit too late there. He almost ran straight into the back of Jonathan Hoggard into the island hairpin. Over hilltop they go, and that means that he's now going to have to spend the next few corners regaining that lost time. Why Hoggard has lost pace here. I thought at first it had been a mistake, but it seems to be a more gradual loss of time, as if maybe he's overworked those tyres. It's a tough circuit on tyres, Oulton Park. There are a lot of corners, a lot of acceleration zones out of tight corners as well, which really does work the rear tyres quite hard, and then fast corners like Druids and Old Hall and Cascades that give the front tyres work out as well. It looks like Hoggard, though, should just about be able to hang on. Alexei Nosov will be ruining that mistake that he made at the hairpin, because it might, Nico Verone, excuse me, ruining that mistake because it might have cost him a chance at the race win. The checkered flag is out, and Jonathan Hoggard finally gets his first victory of the season. It's another race win for Fortec, although not necessarily from the drivers you might have expected. Second place for Verone, and Nosov hangs on to third after a race-long duel with Zach O'Sullivan, who will still benefit enormously in the championship. We'll get an update on the championship standings for you as soon as we can. Then it's Christian Mansell in 5th, Marion Kramer's in 6th, Alex Connor should come home in 7th position. Then Jamie Caroline, 8th. He got himself up another place there at the end, ahead of Nathan de Villiers. Chris Lulham, would you believe, a lap down, has come home in 10th, and that crucial championship point could make all the difference for the championship for Chris Lulham, because it looked as though he and Luke Browning were both going to have non-point scoring race, but in the end, Lulham salvages a place finish, and with it, 1 championship point. Dan Blake, the clerk of the course, reporting that Nathan de Villiers had a crash on the last lap, and that's what brought Jamie Caroline that 8th place. I think will still be classified, like though, and Chris Lulham round out the top 10. Browning ended up 12th instantly, and Nico Pino, after running well on the safety car, in 13th position. Prio, we saw running at the front for a while. He ends up 17th, and Rafa Martins, likewise. That race promised a lot for him, but he is a non-finisher. Mateus Sacazetta, Zay Maloney, of course, a non-finisher too, and I don't think he'll be particularly pleased with what happened to him. Provisionally, though, this is your result from round number 8 of the championship. Jonathan Hoggard with the win, Nico Verone in 2nd, and Alexei Nosov on the podium with them. Zach O'Sullivan is in 4th place, with Christian Mansell in 5th. Marion Kramers takes home a 6th place finish ahead of Alex Connor, and Jamie Caroline gets inside the top 10 on his debut with an 8th place finish. Nathan de Villiers is 9th despite the accident on the last lap, whilst Chris Lulham gets a valuable championship point in 10th. Abby Pulling 11th, Luke Browning 12th, Nico Pino in 13th, and Horatio Fitzsimon 14th. I think last of the qualifying, the finishing drivers. What does this mean for the championship then? Well, Chris Lulham will score a point from that, so he will be on 110 points. But of course, Zach O'Sullivan's 4th place gains him 12 championship points, so he closes right in. So provisionally, it is Lulham on 110. Browning on 107 and Zach O'Sullivan on 97. So just 13 points now covering the top 3. And Nico Verone's 2nd place finish in that race, also valuable because he is only a further 20 points back now. And if he keeps on racking up these podiums, that is now his 2nd podium of the year, but it's his 4th top 5 finish of the season so far. Maybe rack up a few more podiums, and definitely if he gets another win or so, chances are that he could still join in that fight between the Fortec drivers and Zach O'Sullivan for the championship. Jonathan Hoggard's race win, by the way, moves him into 5th place in the championship as well. So, with that, I think we can move on to the podium interviews then, and we will start with our race winner, Jonathan Hoggard. Jonathan joins us now in the comms box. Well, Jonathan, that was a hectic race, definitely, throughout the first 10 minutes or so. Out in front, you built up a gap over Nico, and he started to reel you in towards the end. Were the tyres going off? What was going on?
Yeah, I haven't really been that lucky in a sim race at the start, really, going from I think it's 14th to first in the first 10 minutes, and then got a bit of a gap, but then just didn't really want to make any mistakes. I saw it so easy to dip a wheel off the track, and then the car catches the wrong angle and you spin or something and go in the wall. So just taking it steady as much as I can anyway.
Yeah, which is easier said than done, I'd imagine, because it is so tight out there. Equally, if you start backing off too much to make sure you don't make a mistake, then sometimes that can lead to a loss of concentration and you end up making the mistake anyway.
Yeah, exactly. It's a fine balance. I know a couple of times towards the end of the race, then I made a few mistakes driving off track a little bit too much. But I think it was still a really good race coming from mid pack.
Finally got your first race win then, and it's your second podium appearance of the season so far. It moves you into the top 5 in the points, albeit a long way behind your teammates. What do you think your prospects are of catching them, though, over the second half of the season?
I'm not sure if I can catch them, to be honest. They're really, really quick. I don't know how they can be so quick, to be honest with you. I think I struggle a little bit with this car setup. It's probably a little bit too much understeer for my liking. But still, I think I'm relying on keeping my nose clean and getting some good results like this race just gone.
And it's Snetterton next time out as well, a completely different kind of circuit. Is that a track that you think will suit you better or worse than Oulton Park?
I think it will be good for racing again. I think this one was quite a struggle. I think you have to be pinpoint and kind of perfect with where you're positioning the car. So I think Snetterton might be a bit of a better race for me.
Well, there we go then. We'll have high expectations next Monday night as we head back down south. Congratulations, though, Jonathan, on your first race win of the year.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Jonathan Hoggard, then our race winner. Now, coming home in second was Nico Verone, who is back on the podium again. Nico, well done. Another great drive. You almost caught Jonathan there at the end of the race, but are you still happy with second place?
Hi guys, yeah, it was great race. In the final laps, I was catching Jonathan, but he did a really good race. He didn't make mistakes, so it made it impossible for me to try to overtake him. And congrats to him, and yeah, happy with the second place.
What are your thoughts on Oulton Park as a circuit? It's a really challenging track to get right, isn't it? And it's really important to have good track position because it's hard to overtake here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really tight circuit, really difficult also in qualifying to get the lap done. So yeah, starting from P16, I thought it would be much more difficult to get into the front, but I had luck and avoid all the incidents in front that there were big incidents, and yeah, I was making my way through the field and lucky I could finish P2.
And that means that you are fourth in the championship and about 20 points behind the top 3. If you can win some more races, I think you could be a contender here, couldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I had bad luck at Silverstone in race 2. They hit me from behind, and I broken all the cars. So yeah, I think if we have the pace and we can win some and be always like this right now, P4 in race 1 and P2 in race 2, I think yeah, we have possibilities, but anything can happen.
Indeed, it can. Well, congratulations on the podium, Nico, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you. Cheers.
Nico Verone then in second place, but third place finisher in the race, back on the podium once again, was Alexei Nasov. And Alexei, you're new to this championship, but you're really catching a lot of people's attention. The brilliant result there. Well done.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just bought this track 20 minutes before the qualifying, and I didn't know at all. And I was really surprised with the pace that I could show in the qualifying. But the first race was, really disappointed. I was involved in the 3 or 4 crashes, I don't know. But in the second race, I was hoping to fight for the win. But after the second turn, when I got a huge net code, I was pushed to out the track and was restarting under the safety car from P14, but fortunately could avoid all the incidents, catch P3, and just this track is not hard to defend the position, and so that's what I was doing all the race.
You make that sound very easy, the way you defended from Zach O'Sullivan, but it didn't look easy. We spent a lot of time watching that battle. Where was it that Zach was a bit quicker than you? Because you definitely, it seemed, were really having to work hard to keep him behind.
Yeah, sure. I was a bit nervous because I don't know this track really well, and I wasn't trying to push because you see that this track is not hard to defend, and so that was the strategy.
And Zach tried everything to get past you, but couldn't quite do it. So it's another podium. First of all, are you going to be with us for the rest of the season? And if so, do you think that you've still got time to catch the championship leaders?
I don't think so, because to me 4 races is too much, and the gap is too big. In case that these leaders are also pretty fast, and then they don't miss the points. But I'll try to fight as high as possible in the championship.
Well, you've really impressed us so far, Alexei. Thank you very much for joining us, and well done on another podium.
And just one correction: I'm Nesov, not Nesov.
I thought I was probably saying it wrong, so thank you for the correction.
Okay.
I'll try to remember that. All right, thanks, mate. Anyway, well done on the.
Thank you. See you.
For Alexei, thank you very much. So that is your podium drivers for the race, and well, what a night of racing it was, with the championship battle more finely poised than ever, with Chris Lulham just 3 points ahead of Luke Browning as we head away from Oulton Park. I don't know, what do you think? Should we go and dive in with a couple of the Fortet drivers who are in championship contention, maybe, and try and build up for the second half of the season? Because we are now halfway through the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy. We've got another 6 races still to settle it. Snetterton next, Silverstone after that on the international circuit, and then the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit after that one as well. And Chris Lulham, I believe, is waiting in the interview room. Chris, sorry to drag you away from your team debriefing there, but I thought we better catch up with you because you're leading the championship. We're into the second half of the season now. It's getting quite close, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is. It is a little mistake in that race, cost me some points, but it is what it is, and I'll keep pushing for the rest of the season.
It's been kind of the story of your season, hasn't it? That, I mean, you've proven you've got great pace, and you've won 2 races, and you've been able to do that from the front of the grid on both occasions. But you've also shown that when you get dealt a bad hand, you're able to really dig deep and fight your way through. I think almost every race night so far, you've had some sort of an issue, and yet you've still only been out of the top 5 twice now all season.
Yeah, no, the key is just to not give up, come up the pits, keep pushing, call it lap every lap, and I managed to get a 1 point because of it.
And how valuable could that point prove to be? Because you're only 3 points ahead of Luke by our calculations going to Snetterton. It could well be that this championship gets decided by these 1 or 2 points that you're able to salvage from disappointing races.
Yeah, for sure. Every point's going to be crucial because we're both matched on pace, and I'm sure it'll come down to the final race.
We hope so. I'm sure you'd rather it was decided a bit earlier than that, but yeah, it's going to be a really exciting final 3 weeks of competition, that's for sure. Thank you, Chris, for joining us. We'll let you get back to the Vortec team, but we are going to drag in your teammate, I think, Jonathan Hoggard, for the last word of the night. Dr. Luke Browning, excuse me. I'll get that right in a minute. There he is. So, Luke, just drag you in for a quick chat here at the end of the night. We've just spoken to your teammate, Chris. 3 points in it, we think, but that was not the race that either of you really needed, was it?
No, yeah, it's just one of them things. Like I said before, it was always going to be a survival race, and we did well just to get through lap 1. I think I went from like 18th to 7th or something in lap 1, and then after that it was just it's really unlucky. I think it's we had a guy that was hit the barriers and then come back out over the track, and there was just nowhere for me to go really. And I think Chris was taking avoiding action as well, and I ended up hitting Chris, and and then we had to tow back, so it was all a big mess. But we're close as ever. I think it's brought O'Sullivan a little bit into the equation as well. which should be a little bit more exciting for the championship. But yeah, it's great for Fortec. We've had Hoggard win a race, which is ace. So yeah, 2 out of 2 wins for Fortec. Brilliant.
Yeah, it's been a pretty good season for the team, hasn't it? And your season really started so well with those 2 wins from the first 3 races. It's just hard, isn't it, to string together that kind of consistency in a series that is this consistent, this strong, sorry, as far as the driver lineup is concerned, but also you do have, these start line incidents and, the netcode problems, whatever. Is it harder, do you think, to sort of build that championship challenge in something like this than it might be in the real world?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, less things go wrong in the real world. Just generally, people can be a lot more consistent. There's less crashes, and there's less risk of technical issues going on. Some people's wheels just fail or whatever. So yeah, it is usually easier to build up a lead if you're quicker. But yeah, for sure, it's a lot harder in sim racing just by the nature of it, really. You just have issues left, right, and centre. But it must be a great spectator sport, which is up and coming at the moment, I think.
Definitely, and it's probably the one positive really to take out of the current situation we find ourselves in. There's a real spotlight being shone on sim racing, and I know you guys are seeing this as a genuine chance to not only have a bit of fun, obviously, which is the primary aim, but also to kind of prove yourselves. We know that a lot of you use things like iRacing as a training tool anyway, and now it's the only way that you get to show everyone, your sponsors, what you can do.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, it's a perfect platform you're racing against. Sim racing is as even as you can get it. You have exactly the same car, you have exactly the same setup. All you have to do is get your rigs, fit it to your style at home, and make it so that you can drive the quickest. And that's it, really. There isn't really any special tricks. Sure, it helps having more time in it for sure. But yeah, I think sim racing is a great leveler, and it's awesome to be able to race against such big names and battle with them.
Well, we're very grateful to have you on board, Luke, and hopefully you and Chris, and maybe even Zach as well, can take this championship battle right down to the wire.
For sure, yeah, it'll be good fun.
Stuff. Right, I'll let you get back off now, Luke, but thanks for joining us here towards the end of the night. We were hoping to hear from Zach O'Sullivan as well. He did briefly appear. Oh, here he is. He's back again now. Let's drag him in. Final interview of the night, I think, and it's the man that's doing all of the chasing. And Zach, you were doing some real chasing in that race as well. How badly did you want that 3rd place?
Very badly. But as I said, I capitalised on any incidents at the start. And it was sort of, I knew Chris and Luke were both out or were unlikely to score any points. So I didn't really want to risk an accident with Alexi on the last lap. So I tried my hardest, tried to force him into a mistake, but I couldn't quite make it stick in the end.
I mean, it would have got you an extra 3 championship points, but I think given where you were a couple of rounds ago, you'd be quite glad now to be just 13 off the top of the championship.
Oh, no, definitely. Yeah, that race 2 couldn't have really gone much better for me because there are a few incidents that I got very close to being taken out in, but managed to just about avoid them, which is very lucky, I think. It's just about doing the same from the next rounds, really, and working on that as we go through the championship.
I think it goes to show as well the importance of never giving up. We talk about this a lot in motorsport, but when you saw the Fortec drivers, Luke and Chris, winning 4 of the first 5 races between them, it would have been easy, I think, for the rest of you to think, oh, well, that's it now. They've disappeared. We're not going to catch them now. But you've really proven, especially over the last 2 or 3 races, that they can still be caught, and you've really got to just keep the pressure on them and try and do everything you can to catch them.
No, yeah, for sure. Anything's possible, and especially, I think, with this FIA point system, it's very easy if you have an incident not to score any points, and if you have a good race to score massive points. There's a big gap in the points being given, basically. So anything's possible, really. I think until the last race, last corner, we'll only know who's about to win.
We're looking forward to it. We've got 6 more races, before that point. We're off to Snetterton next. Are you looking forward to that one?
No, I do like Snetterton. It's a very technical track, a lot of off-cambered long corners. So there'll be a lot of practice going in there to make sure I'm quick come race weekend or Monday night.
Yeah, it's taken me a while to get my head around that as well. Yes, Monday nights are Formula 4 nights, and I'm sure we'll have a lot of people back to watch the action next week. Thanks, Zach, for taking the time to talk to us a couple of times tonight, and well done on a pretty profitable night of racing.
No worries. Thanks.
So there you have it then. That sets the scene nicely, I think, as we head into our final 3 weeks of competition in this inaugural British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy. The Snetterton 300 circuit plays host to the races next time. That will be the longest circuit at which we're going to race this year. And it's a track that definitely produces some really, really good racing. So I think we're in for pair of races next week. Thanks to everyone for joining us for a chat throughout the night. Thank you everyone who's tuned in to watch as well. Hope you've been enjoying the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy and all of the other great racing on Year One Racing TV. Don't forget, tomorrow the BSR MX5 Championship will be back in action for their next 4 races. We'll also have the Power Max Racing E-Series on Wednesday nights too, with lots more racing to come later on in the week as well. Head over to the Year One Racing TV Twitch channel for all of the information, also all of their social media pages. Full rundown of all of the upcoming broadcasts. Though I think is just about it here from Oulton Park. It's been a cracking night of racing. The championship is remarkably finely poised as we head to Snetterton next week. Sure, you'll all want to be back to enjoy the racing action then. Until then, though, on behalf of everyone here at Year One Racing TV, thanks to Alpha Live and Momentum Social as well. This has been the British Formula 4 iRacing Trophy. We'll be back again for more of the same next Monday night.